One of the most rewarding things about being a parent is to watch as your children grow to become more than just your children. They become your friends. John and I have had that privilege with both of our children. Eric was our son, but he was also one of our very dearest friends. His passing has left an enormous Eric-sized hole in our hearts and in our lives. Our sadness is profound. But today, we are not gathered here to mourn. We are gathered to celebrate the 24 wonderful years that we were able to spend with Eric. We're here to share our thoughts. We're here to share stories. We hope to make you smile, maybe even laugh a little, and remember all the joy that Eric brought to our world. Before we launch into those stories, we would like to share some words taken from the Metta Sutta. It's a Buddhist teaching on loving kindness that we feel really reflects what Eric was all about.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove.
They should wish, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, the medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and those to be born, may all beings be at ease.
Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon any other. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should we cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the sky and downward to the depths, outwards and unbounded and freed from all hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, whether seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should always sustain this recollection.
I recall a very young Eric sitting in his car seat, third row in center of our minivan. He'd been staring intently at the reflection of my eyes in the rearview mirror, though I had not noticed. I snapped back into it when I heard Eric ask innocently, "Dad, could you say something?" We had been out on some small errand, and Tess and I had been lost in our own thoughts, as we are apt to do. Diana was not present, or Eric would not have had to ask such a question. I do not recall exactly what I said that day, but today, Eric, I will share a few memories, just a few memories, and in the future, I will endeavor to pay closer attention. Eric had a good ear for music and for listening. Eric learned to play trumpet, guitar, piano, tuba, and other instruments, many or maybe all of which he learned by ear. When he was about 9, we visited Colonial Williamsburg, and Eric purchased a toy fife as a souvenir. He was playing Yankee Doodle moments after we left the store. One of his musical passions was composing and creating EDM, or electronic dance music. He assembled a studio of the best hardware and software. He researched and taught himself the math behind digital synthesis, and he spent countless hours composing and editing. When Eric was into something, he was all in. In his early years, it seemed whatever popped into Eric's mind came out his mouth. This made it easy for Diana and I as parents to know what he was thinking, and more importantly, what he was thinking of doing. So when Eric asked, "Dad, could you say something?" it was his earliest way of asking me to share my thoughts with him. To say Eric valued sharing would be an understatement. Given the opportunity, Eric would share his philosophies with you for hours. These evolved and matured in his explorations over the years. On my trips with Eric to and from college before and after holidays, teenage Eric would ask, "Dad, what would you like to argue about?" By this time, Eric was in the driver's seat, and by argue, he meant what topic should we debate to pass the time. Along our journey, Eric would share his flawed philosophy with me on a subject, and I would share my flawed philosophy on the same subject with him. We would discuss and debate for hours. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and refreshing. Each time as we neared our destination, much sooner than expected, we would inevitably converge on common ground less flawed than when we started. We learned much about each other and even more about ourselves during those talks. As Eric matured, he became more articulate in expressing his ideas and thought processes. Our debates were replaced by meaningful conversations and open-ended questions posed by the deep thinker now coming through in Eric. And the argumentative nature of a teenager was replaced by the powerful sense of calmness and patience of a thoughtful, reflective, and compassionate young man. Eric had always, at times, brought calmness and peace to the table. A young Eric was there when I broke my back. While I was screaming in agony, expecting it was my end, Eric settled me by calmly focusing me on the moment, and in this case, on the practical. He calmly instructed, "Tell me what to do, Dad," which made me think, and in so doing, put me at ease. I suspect Eric brought the same to his work as a volunteer EMT. I remember him telling stories of horrific accidents and tragic events, and envisioned Eric bringing comfort to others in their times of pain and need. Eric was a scientist, and the scientific method was innate in his nature. His approach to science was both analytical and personal. I recall an experiment Eric conducted when he was 2. We had been living in Arizona and visited Tucson to hike Sabino Canyon. I did my best to explain the dangers of the desert: snakes, scorpions, cactus. During a water break, I recall Eric looking me straight in the eye before planting his index finger directly into the largest cactus spine he could find. He wanted to experience for himself the true meaning of my words of caution, and perhaps to test my sincerity. He did, and I think I passed that test. Eric had an interesting relationship with food. When offered a hot dog as a young child, he would look at you as if to say, "You want me to eat that?" Later, he conceded to the eating of hot dogs, but only temporarily. Eventually, he gravitated to his natural and probably better instinct. If you cannot name the ingredients, don't eat it. Eric had a peaked sense of smell. On a trip we made to Switzerland, we discovered rosti. Upon returning, Eric made all sorts of rosti for us. Comfort food. Good times. Several years back, Eric launched into a full court press exploration of his diet. When Eric started his keto phase, he made an appointment with Diana and me to explain what he was doing and why. He had already previously researched the health benefits of the diet, bought the requisite blood testing kit, and was well into his first few weeks before he briefed us. Upon further investigation of diet and considerable research, he transitioned to a whole food, plant-based diet, interspersed with periods of fasting. This appeared to stick. That said, on occasion, with family and friends, Eric would indulge in the sharing of foods others enjoyed, whether it was king salmon or cheese pizza. Ultimately, I think Eric considered eating one of life's annoying little necessities. One time he explained to me one of the benefits of fasting he valued. Having the additional time, owing to the time saved not preparing and consuming food, to spend on more productive endeavors. Eric was a minimalist. His apartment had sparse furnishings and few decorations, though probably the same can be said of many bachelors. He did have his material possessions, his gaming computer setup, complete with his self-designed treadmill desk, his smart bed which monitored and helped regulate body temperature, and his blenders for concocting kale-based berry and flaxseed milk smoothies. Eric possessed a tent, but he rarely used it, preferring to sleep under the stars in his hammock. Whenever Diana and I asked if he wanted some item of memorabilia or even some useful item of his which we had been saving for him, Eric would pass. Eric refused to be encumbered by material items which might distract him from living his life in the present moment. Eric was acutely aware of the unyielding progression of time, and in Eric fashion, he reflected on his position along the axis of lifetime. Last summer, Eric shared his life in weeks chart with Diana, Tess, and me. This chart gives a bird's eye view of weeks spent and future weeks depicted as a grid of tiny, color-coded squares. It's sobering to see how few weeks one has to experience and share life. And Eric's passing drives home the fact we never know which moment might be our last. I treasure the time our squares overlapped. My son, I dearly miss you, and I will endeavor to live life in the moment as you had. Lastly, Eric, it comforts me to know you made the most of every little square you had.
My name is Joe Stansky. I cannot remember when I first met Eric, but I certainly know where it was. It was in the cafeteria at Valley View School in Lebanon Township. That is where Cub Scout Pack 92's monthly pack meetings were held. I was Cub Master of Pack 92, and Eric was one of the bright-eyed, energetic, optimistic Cub Scouts new to Pack 92. In Scouts, it has always been interesting and a pleasure for me to watch young boys explore new and different types of adventures, forge great friendships, and build self-confidence, a little at a time along the way. Eric was no different. He built a strong friendship with Dylan and Philip in Scouts. They were always together. They were fondly called the Three Musketeers or the Three Amigos among the adult leaders. Their friendship made it easy for me to watch over them at scouting events. Wherever one was, the other two were always found close at hand. I was also Scoutmaster for Boy Scout Troop 92. As Eric aged and bridged over to Boy Scouts, the adventures became more adventurous, the challenges became more challenging, and responsibilities and leadership roles for Scouts in a troop increased. Eric always embraced these as new opportunities with the same bright-eyed, energetic optimism he had as a Cub Scout. When I heard of Eric's death, the first memory that came to my mind was a photo of Eric at the top of Pikes Peak in Colorado. It was 2011. We were on our way to Philmont Scout Ranch for a 7-day backpacking trek in New Mexico. Before our trek at Philmont began, we did a few side trips in Colorado. One of these side trips was driving to the summit of Pikes Peak. My son Kyle got a hold of my camera and took some candid shots. This photo of Eric shows him with a carefree smile on his face with no cares in the world. He wasn't only on the top of Pikes Peak, but in that moment, he was on top of the world. That's how Eric always seemed to be in the moment. Another day we drove through the Garden of the Gods. In this photo you see Kyle, Dylan, and Kevin sitting upright on a rock formation, but not Eric. Eric was lying back, just relaxing on a rock, as comfortable as could be, living large, soaking up the moment. That trip to Philmont changed my relationship with Eric as well as with all the other boys who went on that trip. During the backpacking portion of our trip, I was no longer their leader, but one of their peers. We needed to work together as one, look out for one another, and support each other whenever needed. The photo you see now is Eric spotting me on the climbing wall. Good thing I didn't fall, or else they would have had to perform some first aid on me, and probably even more first aid on Eric since I would have fallen on top of him. When I think back to some of the times I spent with Eric, many of those memories bring a smile to my face and a warmth to my heart. We all have those moments of cherished memories with Eric. I'm sure there will be days in the future when sadness will try to take over our hearts, and that is when we need to pause. Find a comfortable rock, lie down, and be in a happy moment with Eric.
Hi, everyone. I think there's a lot of words you could use to describe Eric. Kind, caring, a good guy, and overall just a great friend to have. One word in particular that I would use, though, is adventurous. You know, Eric loved to try new things and find new interests. He really wasn't scared of trying anything. And when he did find something he enjoyed, he really worked hard at it and devoted himself to it. Back when we were kids, he learned to pick up the guitar, and he became easily one of the best guitarists that I know. When he got into electronic music, he would show me some of the songs that he made, and I thought they sounded like the hits you would hear on the radio. They were that good. We would go hiking almost every summer, and he would always just have something new to talk about, some new passion, interest, from computer science to biology, meditation, philosophy. There was just always something new he was trying, always some new interest and passion. I think that's just one of the many reasons that growing up together, he was such an inspiration for me to try hard at the things you enjoy and to keep an open mind. Growing up together, I just learned a ton from him. He's really had a huge impact on who I am today, and my whole life in general, really. Um, so with that being said, man, wherever you are, I hope you're doing well, and thanks for all the good times that we had. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really gonna miss you, man.
I'm Steve Hudson, and I'm Eric's music teacher from years ago, and I want to share a few thoughts um, on Eric and ways that he inspired me. Um, Eric, well, I know Eric because he took piano lessons with me in Annandale at my house, and then he also participated in a music camp I have in the summer. And in terms of like the music camp, I remember thinking when I just through the week, at that point Eric was a teenager, and teenagers can be funny, right? Moody or clicky or this or that. Uh, Many hyper aware who they're hanging out with, and Eric was very friendly and warm with literally everyone, from 10 years old to 19 years old. Um, I found that really inspiring and cool. Just very warm, friendly with his spirit, with his talent. He was playing piano, guitar, some drums, I believe. He was playing in all the ensembles. So he had this real spirit of just not holding back and really leaning into things, um, which I loved about him. And then also, I can say that when he came to my house for piano lessons, I have a couple memories that I want to share. One is, I've taught many students of all ages. No one like Eric though. Uh, so Eric, I know in our first lesson, he said, look, I want to learn piano, but I'm really curious about this style of music coming out called EDM, which I was aware of, but he also played me a few clips, things that he wrote, other artists music that he admired. And he's like, I really, I want to learn piano, but I want to learn how to do this. And can you help me? And so he had a very like clear idea in his mind what he wanted. It wasn't like, hey, I want to get better, and what do you got? He was like, I want to get better, and this is really what I want to do. So, we did our lessons and all that, and we were learning obviously to play, to read and write, to write music, treble, bass, clef, the traditional way. And Eric, I remember him saying, that's cool, but I really want to also learn, how to do this on the computer with something called a piano roll. There are different programs, and he showed me these programs, and he's like, I'm fine with doing the traditional way, but I kind of want to learn this new way of writing music. And he was into something called MIDI, which is, playing the piano or any instrument and sending digital signals to the music program to create music. So he was definitely more on the tech front of things, and so there's a little bit of a tug of war between him and me, because I was like, okay, we can do that, but let's do the traditional way, and then we're gonna get into like your way. Yeah, I think in the end, Eric kind of won that because he kept, every time we did like, we covered different things in the lesson. He'd be like, okay, that's cool, but when are we gonna get to what I really want to know? So anyway, we dove into that, and he took the ball and just ran with it. Very, very creative, and very, very smart, and had a very he had clear ideas. And at that time, I mean, EDM was popular, but not that style of music, not the level of popularity it has today. And so it's funny because months ago he popped in my mind because I'm watching something on this video series called Masterclass, and there's this guy, a music artist, and he's showing how he's creating the music, and he's doing a lot of the things that Eric was doing and wanted to learn more of years and years and years ago. And I remember he popped in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, he was really on the front end of that, and kind of ahead of his time, because there were no other students of mine like really pushing sort of this alternate way of making music with primarily with the computer. So yeah, I found him really strong-willed and a man with ideas that I found really inspiring. A young man with ideas. And I do want to add that I also found inspiring Diana, his mom, who brought him to his lessons. I just want to share that obviously everyone on the planet loved their child with all their heart, but it also just showed me, just through her actions, just through driving. I'm not even sure how they found me as a teacher, probably through a friend of a friend or something. But she really took an effort to nurture his interest and went the extra mile. And I think that's really cool. And I have to say, as a parent myself, I find that just really inspiring. So I think Eric leaves a great legacy. An amazing person, and his sort of the ripple effects of his interactions with people, some of which we won't know actually, but will live on. So it's been a real pleasure.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tess, and I'm Eric's older sister, chronologically speaking. But honestly, there was so much that I admired about him, and so much that he taught me, both intentionally and unintentionally through his actions, that is not what it felt like once we were adults. I first met Eric on a day I do not remember. My earliest memories of him are as a great playmate. We climbed trees together and played pretend games with my Barbies and his Bionicles. I remember him always being ready to jump right into something new. He would always minimize the distance between realizing what he was going for and putting it into action. He would be biking around Lebanon Township with his friends with far less thought than I would have given to the distances involved. He always had a strong sense of perspective about what was important, the drive to cut out what could be safely ignored, although it took him a while to figure out how to do that effectively. I remember watching in horror as he'd skip past all the instructions and dialogue in some video game he was playing, and then be left with no idea what was going on. He figured out how to make this work for him later in life, efficiently cutting out many trips to the grocery store by filling his fridge and cabinets with all the kale and garbanzo beans and crackers he would need for the next month. He later came to value this explicitly, but from the very beginning, he intuitively lived the small moments of his life to the fullest. It was a real mood lifter for the rest of us to see him in his elements and really enjoying himself. He loved to express his creativity, designing Christmas cookies with me, designing Minecraft bases and board games, and of course, composing music. He was always joking around with his friends and mugging the camera every chance he got. He was delighted by the many pets and creatures he brought into our home, the most beloved of which was a cockatiel he named Ringo, whom he doted on, feeding him millet treats, upgrading his cage with new toys, and just watching him do cute bird things. He liked to be close to those he loved, and since you can't have deep philosophical conversations with a cockatiel, that meant physically. He'd play with Ringo, but he would also just have him out of his cage and sitting on his shoulder while they both did their separate human and bird things. But whatever he was really interested in, he went all in on, with a strong passion to understand how it worked and how he could do whatever he was doing with it in the most efficient way possible. When he got into electronic music, he got into electronic music. He spent months researching the software and synthesizers available, how they functioned, and how he could use them to do what he wanted to do. He learned about music theory, and whenever we were listening to music together, He'd get me to see the artistry in some song that I didn't find too exciting on first glance, by breaking down how the chord progression worked or how the composers used some technique to achieve an effect they wanted. He got similarly into this competitive video game, Smite, both playing it and watching high-level matches to study the strategies used by the pro players. I have more anticlimactic memories of him showing me and anyone else available some clip of a Smite match, excitedly explaining all the strategies they were employing and the tactics they were using, and it's not helping me at all to understand what was going on. But he would not stop there. As part of his optimization protocol, he would be breaking down and analyzing always what he enjoyed about these things, so he could efficiently and effectively have fun in the future, you know? The conclusion he came to for these sorts of things was that they were about the journey a lot more than about the destination. The commonality he found between composing music and having a conversation with friends and playing games and a lot of other things he enjoyed was being in a flow state, really existing within the moments in terms of interpreting the information coming in and deciding what to do with that. That was what he found most exciting. With this understanding why attitude he had came a complete lack of allegiance to how things were supposed to be done. Mom and I were kind of baffled, being musicians ourselves, when he came out of piano class and told us that he didn't want to learn sheet music. It was outdated, and he didn't see the points of its place in modern music, finding the piano roll system in his electronic music programs a lot more intuitive. We had some wonderful arguments about that. He would be questioning conventional wisdom in any context where it did not jive with him. He argued with me once that college was obsolete because one could, as he was currently doing with philosophy, aging science, diet science, and so many other things, one could learn all one needed to online through free resources. And I tried to impress upon him that the skill he had with finding the correct information and integrating it so well was not really the sort of thing you could expect everyone to be able to do. When Mom and I tried to get him to do yoga, as he was trying to get us to do meditation, his complaints was that he couldn't engage with it that way with how the teacher was teaching it, because they wouldn't explain what parts were important and what parts he could cut out and throw away, and it wouldn't give him the information he needed to do this optimization. In this way, he brought so many new questions and ideas into our lives that none of us more by-the-book family members ever thought to think of. But as he grew older, he would turn this attention to what he thought was really important. First came lifestyle improvements. He focused on the fundamental things, such as what he was eating, how he was sleeping, how he was maintaining his physical and mental health. He figured out that he could get new information and ideas through podcasts and audiobooks instead of reading, and this was big. He would always be talking about some new thing he learned on the latest podcast, the latest train he was on. I remember him sending me all these notes he synthesized from various podcasts about managing motivation and attention and how to build effective habits that he was really using to improve his life. In regards to diet, I remember him saying how he was really harnessing his strengths in terms of figuring he'd get up to date on how diet science was at the moment, and then return to it in 20, 30 years of drinking those kale smoothies. But being Eric, he had to go deeper still, and this is why I got interested in Vipassana. Vipassana is the examination of the most fundamental part of life there is, the mind with which we experience it all. Sometimes called insight meditation. To oversimplify, this practice is about observing what it's like to be a conscious being, having thoughts, having experiences, experiencing sensations, and then analyzing this to gain insight onto the nature of your existence. It's no surprise that observing and analyzing his mind in this way and gaining this deeper understanding was a practice that brought him a lot of happiness. And though he'd always been a really easygoing guy, the sense of perspective this practice also fostered, I think, gave him a new level of peace and equanimity with the problems in the world. One thing I really admired about Eric was his willingness to attack any problem he was having head on. He'd seek out advice from family, from friends, from any other source he could find, give it a think over, make a plan, and put it right into action, as was his wont. When he graduated from college and came home to the demoralizing task of sending out all those cover letters to often no response, that's exactly what he did. He assessed what he was capable of and what he wanted to do, and decided that he would send out 3 cover letters every day as soon as he woke up in the morning. No breakfast, no getting dressed. He would get up and get to his computer and get writing, because he'd assessed what he was capable of, and he figured that that was the time where he had the most focus able to do these things. And then he spent the rest of this time recharging after he finished these cover letters in the most efficient way possible, as he did. Playing games, hanging out with friends, and listening to more podcasts about philosophy. And this worked. Just a few short months later, he got a wonderful job at LifeMind that he was happy at for his last days. Eric believed that the mind filtered all aspects of our experience, and that if your mind was a comfortable place to be, you could be at home wherever you were. Maybe that's why when he came home after college, his preferred place to sleep was under the desk that he would get right up and work at. Or while in Boston, on a mildly cushioned bench in a corner of his room. Or in a hammock, or on the couch while we were on vacation. The point is that especially as he got older, he did not care about where he was, only what he was doing, how he was doing it, and most importantly, who he was doing it with. Because more than anything else, Eric was about people. He always wanted to be with people, to talk with people, to hear their ideas, to share his thoughts with them, and to come to greater understandings of each other. He treated his relationships with the intense care with which he treated all the other practices he cared about. He put love and thought into every interaction, big and small. I remember a discussion between Mom and Eric and I about him making small talk with his coworkers, another one of those unnecessary concepts that he indulged in for the sake of those around him. At first, he wanted to know what we thought about how to respond compassionately, but also honestly, when someone had a complaint that he would not find as problematic if it were himself, i.e. the existence of a Monday, or a traffic jam, or some other small setback. We tried to reassure him that as long as he was being polite, he was doing his duty as a coworker. But he said no. I need to go deeper. I really want to be connecting with these people and helping them to feel some of the ease that I feel. He was a thoughtful gifter, which was wonderful, except you never know what to give him back, because he had so few possessions, and those he wanted, he bought right away. He would call me on the phone at whatever time just to see how I was doing and to chat about what was on both of our minds. He was right there with suggestions if I mentioned a problem that I was having, but he would always put the other person first in conversation. And if I wasn't in a solutions mood at the moment, he would gladly turn away to talk about other things. Because all the wonderful things he had to share came second to building up the relationship and giving all that he could in terms of time, thought, and care to those he cared about. Eric was a lifelong seeker, constantly learning new things, improving on the way he lived his life, and seeking deeper connection with those around him. I feel blessed that I was one of the loved ones he valued sharing this journey with. And although there would have been so much more for him to discover if he had the chance to experience it, it does comfort me to know that over the 24 years he had with all of us, A lot of the things he was seeking, he was able to find.
Hello, my name is Ralph Garuto, and I'm professor of biomedical anthropology at Binghamton University. Eric was a member of my research laboratory on tick-borne diseases. He was active in both field and laboratory research, trying to understand the complexities of human risk of infection. He conducted field work with Mandy Rome, then a doctoral student in our program, and worked with my laboratory manager, Rita Spathis. Eric took 2 courses with me, one in basic research design and the other advanced research design. In both courses, he excelled. Here is Eric with his co-authors presenting his research at the Human Biology Association annual meetings in New Orleans in 2017. I thought highly of Eric. He was bright, engaging, upbeat, full of questions, and got along well with everyone, faculty, staff, and other students. He put a lot of effort into his research, and if I needed someone to pitch in on a project, he would be the first to volunteer. Eric spent most of his undergraduate career at Binghamton University with our laboratory. He approached me at the end of his freshman year and stayed with our laboratory and research program until he graduated. Eric really seemed to enjoy his time with us, and we were delighted to have him in our laboratory. He will be missed by all of us.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Schoenhaus, and I worked in the Lyme disease lab in college with Eric for 2 or 3 years. Basically, we met one week at a meeting, and then a few weeks later, we were already camping around, hunting for ticks, and just spending a lot of time together in a nice small group with Mandy and Zara. And it could have been kind of a weird situation. We didn't really know each other, and here we were spending all this time together. But Eric in particular just made it the most fun and adventurous experience. And I think not everybody would necessarily enjoy hunting around for ticks and camping and all this stuff. But Eric, just his enthusiasm and exuberance and passion for nature and the outdoors and adventure made everything so much fun. And we just had the best time together. And then we would go on to make a research project and present in New Orleans and back at Binghamton. And it was just the best experience. He was such a pleasure to work with always, and such a team player. And again, his just love of nature and adventure was completely infectious, and just such a smart, humble, and wonderful guy. And he will be sorely missed.
Hi, I'm Mandy Rome. I had the pleasure of becoming one of Eric's friends while we were both at Binghamton University. Our lab was working on some tick research, gross, and Eric jumped in as a freshman. He was so excited to start everything, and he jumped into every aspect of everything we were working on, and he had so much dedication to everything that he was working on. During the summer of 2016, I was working on some data collection for my dissertation, and he jumped right into that, along with 2 other lovely humans. So we had a small team. We had 4 of us for the whole summer. So Eric lasted all summer, camping every single week with 3 other females. So that was really impressive. And he didn't complain once. He actually had a really great time. So we all had a lot of fun. We picked up ticks most days, gross. But Eric always had a smile on his face. He was always cracking jokes, always making the rest of us laugh. And he was always barefoot. He never had his shoes on. Of course he did while we were collecting ticks, but anytime we got back to camp, his shoes were always off. He was always climbing a tree. He had his hammock. He would always sleep in the tree. in his hammock, which was really awesome. He and the rest of the team worked so hard that summer, and I'm so grateful to all of them. They put in so much more work than I ever expected. And I mean, especially as a freshman and sophomore, it was so impressive. Eric also worked on several other projects that we had going on at the time. He also did a lot of lab work with me and the rest of the team for my dissertation research. Quite frankly, I wouldn't be who I am today without all of Eric's help. It was a lot of work. He put in a lot of work, and I couldn't have done anything without him. So I wouldn't have gotten my doctorate without his help. So I really have him to thank for everything that I have today. His research was accepted at a national meeting in 2017, which was really exciting. So all of us packed up and went down to New Orleans for a week, and he did awesome. He presented his research, and it was fabulous. We may or may not have skipped an afternoon of the conference to go on a swamp tour, but we had a great time. He was one of the kindest and most thoughtful people that I've ever met. And I'm so thankful to have been able to work with him for so long. I like to think that there is a barefoot, tree climbing, upbeat, knowledge seeking little boy out there who now has the best guardian angel possible. Eric will be so missed, but he's always going to be in here for all of us. To Eric's family and the rest of his friends, I'm sending you all my best during this very difficult time.
Dear family and friends of Eric Pecina, my name is Greg Verdine, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of LifeMind Therapeutics. Eric was a much beloved employee of our company. I remember as though it were yesterday, the day that Eric arrived at LifeMind, one of three outstanding individuals who set out on an expedition to grow thousands of fungal strains that had been collected all over the world over the last 75 years from the far reaches of the planet. Then to bank these strains and to isolate their DNA so that they could be genetically decoded. Those three individuals, Eric, Jane, and Claudia, formed an extraordinarily tight-knit and productive group, and they became the model for excellence and commitment that the company has benefited from to this day. The direct, tangible outcome of Eric's effort is that from these fungi, the fungi that he grew up and genomicized, we've discovered two families of precision medicines, both evolved in nature, one that we expect to be used to treat patients with relapsed breast cancer, and a second that we should enable patients with transplanted organs, kidney, heart, liver, lung, to avoid immune rejection of the donor organ. These drugs will save lives, and Eric played a direct role in their discovery. I last saw Eric on March 19th. We spent the first 10 minutes talking science as usual, but then we took a detour and spent 40 minutes talking about metaphysics, about how to practice being present as one human being to another, and about the meaning of consciousness. The last 10 minutes, we talked about Eric spearheading a new project that would allow him to utilize his formidable intellect and computer skills, one that would set him on a course to a higher degree in science. Oh, that I had known that this conversation about consciousness and presence would be the lasting gift that Eric gave me. Eric was a seeker. He was a seeker of truth, a seeker of knowledge, a seeker of deeper reality, a seeker of human connections, of the meaning of life, and of scientific wonders. He lives on in the hearts and minds of all, myself included, whom he recentered from reactiveness to consciousness. And he lives on in his legacy to science and to patients in need. Eric, I've never known anyone quite like you, and I expect I never will. I love you, and I wish you well on your journey. Thank you all.
When Eric was 3 years old, he woke up one night and looked out the window. He came running to wake me up. Mommy, Mommy, you have to get up. I see the most beautiful star. We have to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star right now. And so, of course, I got up, and we did. That, to me, was quintessential Eric. Exploring the world with his eyes wide open, excited about what he found, and so eager to share with the people he was with. Many of the things that you've heard today about Eric have been true since birth. He was a friend to everyone. He never did have much use for shoes. He loved to climb trees, and he loved to feel the wind in his face. Whether he was racing around the block on his bike, flying around the skating rink, or whether he was racing downhill on his skis. Eric was always that kid who wanted to ski straight down the mountain. He wanted to experience everything that that mountain had to offer. He was passionate about life, but over the years, his passions definitely changed. One of his first real obsessions was with Pokemon. Eric inherited literally hundreds of Pokemon cards from a neighbor who mowed our lawn. He carried them around in this old brown briefcase, and he spent so many hours organizing them, learning all their traits and their special abilities, and especially all those evolutions. And then he tried to teach me. I have to admit that I was not the best student. But looking back, I can see the future scientist in Eric trying to put some structure around the world that he saw. Growing up, Eric brought a special twist to our family vacations. When we visited Yellowstone, he kept a running list of every single animal that we saw. Every marmot, every bison. On a family trip to Switzerland, we took a train to the top of the Jungfrau. Of course, Eric was the first one to jump out onto the platform when we reached the top to see what it was like. He stood there for a moment, and then he came running back in to grab the rest of us. He wanted us to experience that wind for ourselves. On that same trip, Eric spent a lot of time trying to perfect his British accent. And in case anyone's wondering, we are not British. We were all highly amused when he actually managed to convince some British tourists that he was from the UK. Of course, Eric did have a great ear, not just for accents, but also for music. As a mother and as a musician, I love to hear him experiment with sounds and chords. He was always optimizing, trying different things until he could get just the sound that he was already hearing in his head. One of my most cherished memories are the times when he would invite me or Tess to join him at the piano. We would sit together. Sometimes one of us would sing. Sometimes I'd grab my flute. We would just play together, whatever felt right at the time. With music, you don't need words. Not that Eric ever struggled for words. From an early age, Eric liked to talk. I'm sure many of you have experienced this particular trait firsthand. Lately, if my phone rang around 4:30 in the afternoon, it was usually Eric. Sometimes he had news to share, but more often, he was just calling to talk. He wanted to touch base. He always seemed to remember exactly what we had been discussing on our last call. And if I was worried about anything, he would be certain to circle back and follow up, just to see how that was going. He seemed to feel he had a special mission to look after Mom. As you've heard, Eric really didn't have much use for small talk, especially as he grew older. He would tolerate it, But he wanted to go deeper. Always a scientist and a bit of a philosopher. He spent hours each day listening to podcasts and interviews, looking for insights into the logic of the universe, and especially into the workings of the human mind. One day, he discovered Vipassana, and something clicked. Vipassana is an insight meditation practice. It has deep roots in Theravada Buddhism. It's a very scientific approach. The word Vipassana means to see things as they really are. And that rang true for Eric. He became a serious student of meditation, and he dove deep into the science and the philosophy behind it. Listening to lectures and discussions led by Sam Harris, Joseph Goldstein, Richie Davidson, and other leading thinkers in the field. He began to meditate daily, and as many of you know for yourselves, he wanted to bring all of his family and his friends along on his journey. He set up daily video calls with Tess and I so that the three of us could all meditate together and, of course, talk about our experience. Over the last several years, I have spent countless hours talking philosophy with Eric. I learned a lot from my son. I have to say this time, I was a better student. One of the central insights of Buddhism is that nothing is permanent. Things change from one moment to the next. It is a simple idea, but it's profound. It means that every single thing we do, from the most trivial to the most precious, one day we will do that thing for the very last time. The thing is, we never know for sure when that last time is going to be. Think about what you did just this morning. Maybe you had coffee with a friend. Maybe you were able to watch the sunrise. Maybe you hugged your child as they headed off to school. You never know when you will do even these simple things for the very last time. This idea really resonated with Eric. It strengthened his dedication to live his life with full intention and to be truly mindful of every moment. And so today, on behalf of Eric, I would like to invite you all to experience a moment of mindfulness for yourselves. Right now, wherever you are, just sit quietly for a moment. Notice what you see. Maybe you're in a familiar space. Look closer. There might be something that you've missed before. Now settle in and close your eyes just for a moment. Listen. Maybe you hear a car outside, a voice, the sound of the wind. There may be thoughts that pop up in your head, maybe memories, plans for the day. Just for a moment, try to let them go and bring yourself back to the present moment. This is the essence of mindfulness. If Eric were here today, he would have been so happy to be able to share this practice with all of you. Eric was a young man who lived every moment to the fullest, and he would have wanted all of us to do the same. On behalf of John and Tess, and most especially on behalf of Eric, we would like to close with an expression of metta, or loving kindness from the Buddhist tradition. From our hearts to yours, may you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering, and may you live with ease. Thank you.